If you're the kind of person who wants a coffee machine that just works, no daily fiddling, no surprise breakdowns, and a price that feels justified after the first week of use, then you're probably staring at a list of espresso makers that all sound impressive but leave you wondering if any of them will actually fit into your routine. The fear of spending a chunk of your budget on a gadget that ends up gathering dust is real, especially when you've seen glossy ads promise barista-level drinks with the press of a button. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and that's the machine I'm talking about, the Jura E8 in Chrome. I spent a few weeks watching how the Jura line stacks up against other high-end superautomatic models, reading the handful of reviews that actually dive into daily life, and even asking a couple of friends who own similar machines what they wish they'd known before buying. What emerged was a pattern. People love the convenience of fresh ground coffee at the touch of a button, but they often get tripped up by hidden maintenance steps or buy a machine that feels more like a countertop appliance than a kitchen staple. The Jura E8 tries to address those pain points, and the question is whether it delivers enough to make the investment worthwhile. Let's start with who this machine is built for. If you're a household that drinks multiple cups a day, likes to experiment with milk-based drinks like lattes or flat whites, and prefers not to juggle separate grinders, beans, and frothers, the E8 hits the sweet spot. The one-touch milk system does more than just heat milk, it also cleans itself with a short rinse cycle, which means you won't be left with milk residue that slowly builds up and creates a funky taste. For a busy professional who wants a reliable morning espresso and an occasional cappuccino without stepping into the kitchen for a full-on ritual, the E8 feels like a natural extension of the workflow. On the flip side, if you only need a single cup now and then, or you enjoy the hands-on process of tamping and pulling a shot, you'll probably find the E8 overkill. The machine is priced in the premium segment, and while it does a lot of things automatically, that convenience comes with a learning curve around the software menus. People who are comfortable with a manual espresso setup where you control grind size, dose, and pressure might feel restricted by the pre-programmed profiles. In that case, a simpler pump espresso machine or even a quality pour-over setup could serve you better, both financially and experientially. Now, let's talk about the day-to-day experience. The first thing you notice is the touchscreen. It's not just a fancy display, it actually speeds up the decision process. You can select espresso, cappuccino, americano, or even a custom my favorite that remembers your preferred strength and volume. When I pressed the espresso button for the first time, the machine ground the beans, tamped, brewed, and delivered a shot in under 30 seconds. The coffee tasted noticeably fresher than a pod-based system because the beans are ground seconds before extraction, which preserves the aromatics that often get lost in pre-ground packs. The milk system is where the Jura really tries to differentiate itself. You attach the small stainless steel frothing wand, add a splash of cold milk, and with a single tap you get a silky microfoam that holds its shape for a latte art attempt. Though I'm not a barista, the foam was definitely CAF quality. The cleaning routine is short, about a minute, and the machine runs a rinse through the milk line automatically, so you're not left with a hidden mess that could sour the next drink. The downside? The milk container holds just enough for a couple of drinks before you have to refill, so families that churn out multiple cappuccinos in a row will need to pause every few cups. One of the more subtle but important aspects is the bean hopper capacity and grinder. The E8 holds about 10 ounces of beans, which is fine for a small household but might feel limiting for a larger office kitchen. The grinder is a conical burr that adjusts automatically based on the drink you select. In practice, this means you don't have to fine-tune grind settings for each beverage, but it also means you lose a bit of control if you prefer a very fine grind for a ristretto or a coarser setting for a lighter brew. I found the default grind to be a happy middle ground for most drinks, but espresso purists might notice the subtle difference compared to a manually calibrated grinder. Maintenance is where the Jura's reputation gets tested. The machine has an automatic descaling alert, which is helpful, but the descaling process itself is a bit involved. You need to buy the specific Jura descaling tablets, run the cycle, and then run a couple of rinse phases. It's not something you want to do weekly, but if you live in a hard water area you'll be performing it every few months. The biggest hidden trade-off is the water tank. It's a